That's how I went. They had this one that had elderberries and goat cheese and all this crazy business.
Yeah. All right, I'll just leave it. It's recording just the fan and the up there. If you wanted to, you could record your faces.
Oh, there's visual. Okay.
Yeah. So I'll just say, hey, these are the workshop notes for Sam, and I'll leave them to it. And this is can all of you just be videotaped real quick, just for a second?
Yeah.
I'll say, here's Mickey and Mal
Hi.
and Alondra are giving their workshop notes.
Awesome. And should we take care to speak a little more loudly than we normally
The microphone's
would,
pretty good, so this volume probably works. And then Mickey at the end, maybe just hit stop broadcast.
Okay.
Sweet. Thanks, Mr. Hartley.
Thank you, Rachel.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So hi. It's our very official workshop for Mr. Sam Reed on his story without a title. Because Mr. Reed is not here to give a reading, I will read a little bit of the piece myself. The little green goblin crawled across the yard and climbed up the trunk of the tree and plucked an apple from the branch and then started munching on it. Its left ear perked up and started twitching. It heard something. When it saw two kids running at it with a burlap sack, it turned around and ran the other way. "Go around the other way! Corner it!" screamed David. Cooper circled around the tree and David bounded forward, attempting to tackle the goblin. He grabbed a hold of the goblin and wrestled with it for a few seconds, but it slipped out of his grasp and ran for the open gate. "Cooper, close the gate!" Cooper ran as fast as he could toward the gate. He got there before the goblin and slammed the gate shut. This, however, did not impede with the goblin's process because it jumped on Cooper's shoulders and leapt over the gate and into the woods behind the house. By the time Cooper had opened the gate, the goblin was long gone. David stood up, brushing the dirt off himself. "We almost had him," whined Cooper. "That's the third time he's gotten away this week," replied David. All right. So, what's going on in this story? What do we have here?
There's Cooper and David, and they have a goblin to catch, and eventually they catch it and then turn it in. They find a whole nest.
Yeah, so they've got a goblin issue, Cooper and David. They go through all these different machinations to try to catch the goblin. Finally, they do. How do they finally catch him? What do they do?
They put chloroform on this apple so that when the goblin ate it, he would fall asleep.
Yeah. So eventually they like try this like rifle technique. They try having a cage fall on the goblin, but the goblin seems a little like squeezy and evasive, so he can get away from anything. So eventually, what's chloroform? Does anybody know?
A comment that I made was like, "What's that?" When it said chloroform, I was like, "What's that?"
Yeah, might be useful to have a description in there. It's like a chemical. It's too much of it'll kill you, but you to sleep. So yeah, so they put the goblin to sleep, dropped him off at animal control, and then they get home and find a nest. Any other details we're missing?
I thought it was kind of interesting that it was just like it just went right in, like it didn't say like David and Cooper were brothers or anything. It was just David and Cooper.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that was a question I kind of had tucked in the back of my mind. Are they brothers? I guess they live together, so maybe they're brothers. To know. Cool. Okay, so we have that detail hovering in there. Perhaps David and Cooper are brothers. Also, it seems like we live in a universe here where having a goblin problem is not terribly unusual. It kind of made me think of like the Harry Potter world where goblins are sort of like akin to like having a pest in your house. Like it seems like when they bring the goblin over to animal control reacted the same way as if you would like bring a rabbit or something. They were like, OMG, a goblin, and neither was anybody else. So that led me to think maybe they're kind of normal in this world. Yeah, Mickey, what did you like about it?
I liked how like specific it was. Like it wasn't, or not specific, just like it kind of just got into the story. Like it wasn't like one day there was a goblin and it was like the little green goblin crawled across the yard.
Yeah, that opening is super engaging. I think it's cool that we start in the goblin's perspective, and the goblin is by the tree, here's these kids, and then we switch into the kids' perspective. I think that it is a really cool way of opening it, and it's opening it in the middle of a scene. There's a fancy Latin phrase for that, in media res. RES is the last word there. In media res, which means you start the story like in the middle of the action that's happening. Because Sam could have taken a more traditional route and started the story with an alarm clock going off, and David wakes up and he eats his breakfast and he has his whole day, and then he comes out and notices this goblin. I think this is much more interesting. We cut right to the action. So good call. What about you, Andra? What'd you like?
I liked how it kind of just stayed on topic and it didn't like wander off. The story didn't give us like too much unnecessary details, and so you kind of just stayed entertained and wanting to read more.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It stays focused on the topic at hand, right? So we're not finding out that Cooper is worried about a geography test that he has tomorrow, because that's not relevant. We're not finding out that day David and Cooper had ham and cheese sandwiches for lunch, because relevant to the goblin story. It's kind of like what we were talking about the other day with like the details in the backpack. This backpack is packed with only what we need, right? So yeah, good call. One of the things that I really admired in this story, and I sort of kind of, I mentioned this before, I like how nonchalant everybody is about the goblin. Like, it would have been so easy to take this story and be like, a goblin, I'm scared, is he gonna hurt us? Like, does he have a portal to another world? Just like freaking out too much about the goblin thing. And this doesn't do that. It just kind of, I think that's part of what makes the story funny. There's a lot of good humor working in here. And the fact that the goblin is not such a big deal strikes me as kind of funny. I also think it's funny at the end when they find the whole nest. It's kind of like a punchline, like we got rid of that one, but we have a million. Out of curiosity, have either of you guys ever had mice where you live?
No.
No? I've been dealing with that in my apartment. Well, I think they're gone. But like for the last couple of months, house thing, and it was just like that. Like I would catch one. I got this humane trap because like I don't want to kill any creatures, especially not mice because they're cute. So I got this humane trap that would like catch them but not kill them, and I would release them every day in the cemetery and like name them and be friends. And eventually I realized like every time I caught one, like there were at least two that would appear the next day. So there was like a nest somewhere, and this made me think of that in kind of a cool way. Any other things that were working that we're missing here?
Maybe he could have like given more details about the characters, because then I could imagine them better.
Yeah, moving into critique, I think that makes sense. What more did you want to know?
Like, kind of like they sound kind of young because they live together or something, but they also have like guns, so I'm guessing that they're probably older. And I was kind of just wondering exactly kind of like around what age they are.
Also, it didn't say anything about like having to ask their dad or anything. It just said that they took their dad's hunting rifle.
Yeah. So we don't know how old they are, because like, yeah, I was picturing them as kind of like 10, 11, something like that. And then when they got that gun, I was like, I mean, I guess I know some young kids who would take their parents' guns, but that scares me on so many levels. Um, yeah, so maybe making their age a little clearer. In this draft of this story, I could not. I had a question for myself. I was like, why aren't Sam and Cooper, or excuse me, Sam's our author. Why aren't David and Cooper one character? Like, what would be the difference if it were just one boy looking for the goblin? And their conversation is pretty good. Their conversation is really funny, actually. I quite like the dialogue in here. So we would lose the dialogue if they were one character. But I think if they're going to be two characters, and this is not the story of one boy's struggle with the goblin, we should find out, yeah, how old they are. Maybe make it a little more explicit that they're brothers. You know, maybe they like live on the edge of town, and that's why they have a shotgun and woods and all that. But I also kind of want to know like how they're different from each other. You know, we don't really see them like, for instance, if they're brothers, I can't tell who's older. From the conversations they're having. I can't tell, you know, is one of them more invested in this goblin thing and the other one is like, I can't believe you're out there chasing those goblins again. Are they competing to see whose idea will win? They just collaborate so seamlessly throughout this story that I find myself, you know, I had a hard time telling them apart. Even physical descriptions might help with that.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
It was a great story. I really liked the dialogue
Yeah.
and the ending. So
Yeah, I laughed out loud at the ending.
If somebody else had written it, it seems like it would have gone on for longer and longer, and like it might not have been as interesting. But it's kind of nice that it's just like a short story.
Yeah, I like that it's short too. It's like it doesn't waste any time or space. It's very I don't know, like in grad school workshop they might call this lean or muscular prose, you know. In other words, they don't have a lot of like fat, not a lot of extra space. It's funny to describe words in those terms like lean, muscular, but it makes sense. I don't know, I found myself wanting a little bit more about this universe where goblins are a routine thing. Like, and maybe this could happen when they go to the animal control place because so the officer acknowledges that the goblin had been seen all over town. And he thinks, but that doesn't tell me whether he was like, oh my gosh, you found this goblin. It's been seen all over town. We've never had a goblin before. Like, the town has been crazy about this. Have you seen the newspapers? You boys are heroes. Or, like, are they treating it just like a really big, nasty rat? Like, oh, we've seen this guy all over town. Thank you, guys. And the reaction might. So, I was curious too, and this is something that may not need to play into the story, but I found myself personally curious about the adults in the house. Like, at least there's a dad in the picture because that's where the rifle comes from. And like, why isn't the dad more concerned about the goblin eating the apple tree? Like, why is this the kid's problem only? I don't know. What else? I've been talking about other things.
maybe you could have like described the goblin a bit more, because the way I imagined it was like small and cute and green, but like maybe it was meant to be like hideous, and like maybe one leg was bigger or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like what's weird about the
Yeah.
goblin? Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I would like to see it a little bit better too. We know he's green, and yeah, I was picturing him as cute too. How did you picture him?
Like, yeah, exact, because it said little green, so I thought that it was like really small, and I didn't. As if it was little, how did it like reach the apples?
Oh yeah, I bet they can like climb and scramble. I'm picturing them as having like long, wild toenails. You know, like the problematic kind.
But they must have needed the apples for something because it was a problem that the goblin was eating them.
Yeah, I think because then they eat apples as a reward when they catch them, right? So they're at the very least they're good food. Yeah, I picture this goblin as like super cute, like maybe with a voice like this, like
Mhm.
mischievous. Let's see. I really like the poisoning idea, the chloroform idea. I think it's pretty smart. Clearly, these kids have some background in science.
Mhm.
Anything else before we turn it over?
No.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Sam, for sharing this awesome story with us. We have had a rad time workshopping it. Mr. Hartley will give you our manuscript. Woo! All right, and then we'll stop the broadcast